So the question is, I'm having trouble making the pieces of the literature review flow. What tips do you have for improving narrative flow in a literature review?
So when I have clients who are struggling with this, the exercise I always do is storyboarding. So thinking about how we would tell a story if you were writing a novel, if you were writing a screenplay, pulling out some storyboard templates, which you can find online pretty easily, and blocking out. I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about this, and making sure that you're telling a story through your literature review. A lot of times when we're in this academic writing space, people forget your writing has to be readable. It has to the reader what they need to know to understand your context. And so if we get so focused on kind of academic tone, which is important, and I'm not saying we don't use that, but we get so focused on that that we then end up losing the story of our literature review. And a well crafted literature review does both. It maintains that level of academic rigor, but it tells a cohesive story, a cohesive narrative for the reader to follow. And so pulling out a storyboarding exercise, really going through and asking yourself, does it make sense to talk about this in this space? Does it make sense to talk about this first or this first? Helps you to understand. I'll give you another example from my professional practice. I do a lot of work with federal education policy in the United States. And so, particularly related to school improvement and accountability. So, I will talk about maybe Title I schools, and I will talk about No Child Left Behind policy. And I have to decide every paper that I write, which do I talk about first? Because the two things are related, the two things influence each other, but they don't always come in the same order in every paper that I'm writing, because ultimately they need to come in the order that's best for the reader to be able to understand my question and my study. So, going back to what I said at the beginning, an old fashioned storyboarding exercise like you did in English 102, Creative Writing 101, back in your bachelor's program can really help you get unstuck with this problem.
That's really helpful. The other bit of advice that I'll give is take advantage of linking sentences. So if you're struggling at the paragraph level flow, always think about what can I end my current paragraph with that signals to the reader what the next paragraph is going to be about. And you want to put in those linking sentences at the end of each of your paragraph that connects the idea from paragraph 1 to the idea from paragraph 2. And in a really good literature review, you're going to have that linking sentence at the end of the previous paragraph. And then your topic sentence of your new paragraph is going to be really on point and clear about what the focus of that paragraph is going to be. More broadly as well, you can think about the structure of the literature review as well. And I always like to use the sort of image of an inverted pyramid. You're going to be starting broad, general, high level coverage, and you're going to slowly start pulling your way in to get more specific, more detailed, more close to your topic and specific research question. And so if you're struggling with that narrative flow, take a step back and just look at your paragraph structure and how you're presenting the information, and make sure you're going from broad to specific and that you're clearly linking ideas.
David,
Yeah.
can I
Yeah.
add just one more thing to that? So, also consider your dissertation handbook, because
Mm,
some universities do provide a pretty strict outline for what needs to be in your literature review and the order that it needs to come in. This I found is especially true for technical programs and
mm.
for some sort of working professional programs. So, make sure that you're following the guidelines in your dissertation handbook. That's one place where I would say don't get creative. If the handbook says A, B, and C, that's what your literature review has to look like. Even if it doesn't make narrative sense to you, it has to
Mm.
match what's in that handbook. So make sure you check that too before you get too far down the road.